And welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be talking about Eleceed, a manhwa I spent far too long sleeping on, even though I was recommended it at every turn by the people in this very community. I admit I checked it out a while back, and I didn't fall in love with it. I found the comedy kind of bland, and the main character very annoying. That being said, I had some time over the past few weeks, and I caught up, and I have to say, I'm sorry. I was wrong. This thing is fantastic, even though the main character still annoys me. That being said, before I jump into it, please do like and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into our discussion of Eleceed. First, Eleceed follows a main character who was born with powers to go really fast. He didn't have them right away, but they showed up a little bit later, and they caused him to fear that others might find out about it, and as such he was forced to move several times, changing schools, and all of that could have brought danger to his family as well as himself. He didn't even know how bad it could have been until quite later on when he discovered how dangerous the world of the Awakened was, but the plot follows him until he meets Kayden, a badass character that loves to challenge the strongest enemies. Oh, but it just so happens that at the start of the story, he is forced, in a situation where he almost dies, he's forced to take the body of a cat to be able to save his powers and to live on to fight another day. But that means we have a story with a plot line with a cat teaching our protagonist how to fight. That being said, it works pretty darn well. This is one of the things I had the most issues with in the plot originally. The cat story didn't bring much for me. I found it kind of annoying, the comedy didn't work, and a lot of the jokes fell really flat for me. That being said, it picks up a lot better later because the type of comedy they use, while it still is a little slapstick and easygoing, it becomes a lot funnier just because of the character interactions that happen around it. And often it's not the cat himself that's funny, but rather the interactions he has with some characters that he causes to be very scared of him, which is a very interesting dynamic. That being said, beyond that, in the plot, the main character discovers that there's a world of Awakened where there's different groups that battle it out or control the world more or less through their organizations of Awakened that are these powerful characters that can manipulate different elements, go really fast, be super strong, you know, the typical tropes of powers in series. But what's interesting is the main character chooses not to join one of these groups and wants to be independent, and for once in his life he finds a place where he belongs, a world that is accepting of who he is, and these groups start accepting him because he just has this personality that's hard to hate, because he's a purely good character, and as soon as people find out that it's authentic, they can't really hate the guy. That being said, I kind of do. At least until much later in the story. The character is a goody two-shoes, and he's always nice. While he learns to become confident and strong and somewhat of a badass, he still is a character that is fundamentally just good. And while I appreciate that, it doesn't make him the most nuanced or interesting characters, so a lot of the most interesting stuff happens around him rather than through him. Other characters around him, like Woon, screwing up these names, has this dark past and great power set, and is honestly a more interesting character than our main character. Ji-hook is also another character that's super interesting, who's this brute, super strong for his generation, and refuses to have friends, but becomes friends with the main character because of different scenarios, and his dynamic with the cat a little bit later in the series, gold. In the plotline, though, a lot of things happen, and I have to say, after the Academy arc, things really do pick up. The series starts off a little slow, and I will say this right off the bat, plot-wise, you may expect things to happen quickly in the series, but they won't. This, in my opinion, is a story that's 80% slice of life, 20% action, Awakened world thing. And when you're watching it, you're going to be like, wow, well, they're spending a lot of times with these character interactions, with this comedy, and that's what the series is more about. The fights are still satisfying when they happen, but don't expect it all the time. And it just works for the series. The comedy lands well with it. the way they do these little moments of like the classic teardrop or stuff like this, where the characters just go blank in the eyes when a situation happens, is really well done in the series, and it really is good at visually showing you the gags that are occurring in the series, and I really enjoy how it does that. Even though I don't find that all the jokes land, particularly in the first few chapters, I can understand why someone doesn't get on board, because I didn't initially. Moving on over to the action. The action follows awakens that can fight with different power sets, which obviously leads to some good fights. And I find the series is actually really good at portraying the speed that the main character has, because his power is speed after all. It's done some amazing panels, and the action is really on point. That's why it makes me sad that I don't see it more often. But when it does happen, at least in the early chapters, it's done for what I'll call throwaway scenes, where there's just a decision to spar between two characters because there's some kind of grievance or some kind of issue that occurs, and it's very little meaning to it, and often ends fairly quickly as a fight. But they're all important little moments for the main character. And that's it. The story really follows the main character and how the world kind of revolves around him. And this story, unlike many other manhwa, deeply felt like a manga to me in a lot of ways. Other than the character design, having a main character with a power set that's rejected by his peers and joins a group later on sounded a lot like Bungo Stray Dogs. And ironically, this story is very much a story led by cats, and Bungo Stray Dogs is a story that has the name Bungo Stray Dogs, even though it's not really a story about dogs. It's a story that is fun. Eleceed has a vibe of a main character that is both innocent and naive, but purely good in every way. And that can become a little annoying, and that's why you have to become a fan of everyone around him, probably more than the main character. I know plenty of you love the main character of Eleceed, and later on in the story, he has tons of badass moments where he's really worth it. But the real star of the show is not any of them. It's Kayden. Kayden inhabits the body of a cat for the most of this plot, with the exception of moments where he gets out of his body for short periods of time. But Kayden is a badass beyond belief, and he drives a lot of the comedy. He drives the development of strength, and he has some killer fights in this series as well. And to be honest, I wish this was a series about Kayden and not the main character, unfortunately. Because I think he's just more interesting, even though he is a cocky, self-centered, power-hungry main character. He would be pretty great, and I'd follow him around. Actually, though, he'd be very much the main character of a lot of different manga I've read or anime that I've watched, but yeah. Eleceed is definitely worth checking out. If you haven't already done so, you should jump on it. It has over 100 chapters, so if you've been waiting for a series to read that has a fair bit of chapters to catch up on, this might be the one you're interested in jumping in. If you like these types of discussions about manga, manhwa, or anime, please do comment down below on what you think about it. I'd be happy to do more of this type of thing, but I also want to give you guys what you want, so please tell me if there's anything else you'd like me to do on this channel, and particularly related to manhwa. With that, guys, like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you soon.